got to do over there. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Good afternoon. I want to thank the committee for their work and consideration of this bill. Pregnancy criminalization is a widespread national problem that California must protect against. In the past 2 decades, at least 1,300 pregnant people have been criminally prosecuted for having miscarriages or stillbirths or self-managing an abortion. California is not exempt from this. Despite clear law that ending or losing a pregnancy is not a crime, prosecutors in this state have charged people with homicide offenses for pregnancy loss. 2 examples that are very recent are the case of Chelsea Becker and Adora Perez, 2 California women who were recently prosecuted and imprisoned for their stillbirths. These charges were only recently dismissed or vacated, and only after these women were behind bars, some in the case of months for Chelsea Becker, and Adora Perez, who was in prison for 4 years because of her pregnancy loss. To illustrate the urgent need to protect against criminalization of pregnancy outcomes, another example comes to mind. This is the one that just happened last week in Texas. Lizelle Herrera ended up having a pregnancy loss. She had a self-managed abortion, and she was jailed for days. Her photo and her name and her private healthcare information were shared widely on the internet before the prosecutors dropped the charges. Therefore, to protect people's reproductive freedom and decision-making, AB 2223 will help ensure that no one faces the same trauma as Chelsea, Adora, or Lizelle by reinforcing current state practices and protections. This bill does so by separating pregnancy outcomes from the state system that police This bill does so by separating pregnancy outcomes from the state systems that police and criminalize. However, there's been a lot of disinformation about this bill that has been spread by the opposition. These same groups that are trying to ban abortion across this country and imprison people for stillbirths have manufactured a disinformation campaign using disturbing and violent imagery that is not grounded in medical science or the actual text of the bill. Opposition groups have mischaracterized the portion of the bill that stops the government from re-traumatizing grieving parents who lose a child after delivery as a result of something that happened during the pregnancy. Therefore, I want to be clear about what this bill does. This bill is specific to pregnancy and pregnancy outcomes. As it relates to perinatal death, this bill protects parents who experience extremely tragic pregnancy outcomes. As parents experience traumatic situations, they should be supported as they mourn, not criminalized. No person should have to endure prosecution as they grieve a tragic loss that has happened during their pregnancy, and this bill provides those protections. Here's a very plausible scenario. When pregnant people exhibit signs of preterm labor, they are frequently recommended to go on bed rest. Unfortunately, not everybody has access to the paid sick leave, workplace protections, or support in taking care of their own children and might require to go on the bed rest. If a person experienced a preterm delivery, it could result in a stillbirth of the baby who passes away because of the prematurity. Including perinatal death as an outcome of pregnancy that should be protected from criminal punishment ensures that a prosecutor cannot argue that the person who did not go on bed rest can be prosecuted because the pregnancy-related death occurred to an infant after delivery rather than to the fetus in utero. Specifically, AB 2223 will ensure that no one in California will be prosecuted for ending a pregnancy or experiencing pregnancy loss. This bill will remove outdated provisions requiring coroners to investigate certain pregnancy losses, will clarify that the Reproductive Privacy Act prohibits criminalization of pregnancy loss and pregnancy outcomes, and create a private right of action for people whose rights have been violated. I want to thank our sponsors, the ACLU of California Action, Black Women for Wellness Project, California Latinas for Reproductive Justice, If One How Lawyering for Reproductive Justice, NARAL, and Planned Parenthood Affiliates of California. Witnesses testifying in support are Dr. Selena Sandoval and Dr. Sarah Roberts.
Thank you. Please go ahead.